जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंदा हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। Hare Krishna. Today we will be discussing Bhagavad Gita as it is, chapter 2, text 57. We'll also discuss 58, 57. Yah sarvatra nabhisnehas tat prapya shubha shubham nabhinandati nadveshti tasya pragna pratisthita. So Krishna says, Yah sarvatra anabhisneha. Anabhisneha means without affection. Sarvatra, everywhere. He who is without attachment. Anabhisneha. Sarvatra anabhisneha. Tattat prapya shubha ashubham. Who does not rejoice when he obtains shubha and ashubha. Shubha means good. Ashubha means evil. He will treat both of them as equal. Na abhinandati na dveshti. He neither praise nor envies. That kind of situation. Tasya pragna pratisthita. That person is firmly fixed in knowledge. So if you recall Arjuna's questions in 54, Sthita pragnasya ka bhasha samadhistasya keshava Sthitadhi kim prabhasheta kim asita vrajeta kim. Arjuna asked that in 54th verse. So 4 questions. First is, what are the transcendentalists' symptoms or symptoms of a self-realized person? Second question is, how does he speak? What is his language? Prabhasheta, kim prabhasheta. Third is, how does he sit? Kim asita. And fourth question is, kim rajeta. How does he walk? Now the first question, what are the transcendentalists' symptoms? Krishna immediately answered in 55th verse, the next verse. Prajahati yada kaman. When a man gives up all varieties of desire for sense gratification, which arise from mental concoction, and when his mind is purified and finds satisfaction in Krishna only, that person is in pure transcendental consciousness. The first question is answered in 55th verse. Now the second question, in what language he speaks? Kim prabhasheta. How does he speak? Now, that may look like what language literally, or the way of his mannerism of his speech. But actually the internal meaning is, how does he respond to situations? Speak means respond. So the 56th and 57th verses cover that. How does he respond to provoking situations? So how are his intelligence and words affected by another's affection, anger, or neutrality? How does he respond? That's why Krishna is using these words, anabhishneha, tattat prapya shubha ashubham. So these two verses, 56th and 57th, Krishna answers, how does he respond? Kim prabhasheta, to provoking situations or difficult situations in life. Like in the previous verse, we have discussed. 56th verse. Dukkheshu anudvignamanaha. When misery comes, he remains unagitated. Sukheshu vigataspruhaha. When sukha comes, happiness comes, he remains detached. He does not get carried away. and he becomes freed from Vita, Raga, Bhaya, Krodha, attachment, fear, and anger. That Krishna mentioned in 56th. Now, the second part of the answer to how does he respond to provoking situations is mentioned in this verse, 57th verse. He is unaffected by whatever good or evil he may obtain, neither praising it nor despising it. So Prabhupada mentions further in the purport of the 57th verse, there is always some upheaval in the material world which may be good or evil. One who is not agitated by such material upheavals, who is unaffected by good and evil, is to be understood to be fixed in Krishna consciousness. So, if you get a coin, so sometimes you toss the coin, and if you get heads, you win the competition. There are some games where you toss and you get heads, and you get to take home some gift. But if you get tail, then you have to pay something from your pocket. You lose some money. So this material world is like that coin. Everybody is working hard, tossing it to get the head. The heads, when you toss it, they want to see the heads on top so they can take home some gift. But inevitably, the coin has both sides. You deal with this material world, you're dealing with the coin. Inevitably, you will get both good and evil. It's only a matter of time. Sometimes heads will come, sometimes tails will come when you toss the coin. So, one who is not agitated by such material upheavals, who is unaffected by good and evil, sarvatra anabhishneha tat tat prapya shubha ashubham, is to be understood to be fixed in Krishna consciousness. Why also Prabhupada mentions? One is fixed in Krishna consciousness because he is not affected by good and evil, because he is simply concerned with Krishna, who is all good, absolute. For Krishna, there is no good and evil, isn't it? Even when Krishna does something evil, like, for example, you are at home, somebody comes with deadly weapons and they start attacking your own father. It's a grievous, evil activity, isn't it? But the same thing Lord Narasimha did to Prahlad Maharaj. He came to their home and he attacked his own father. Not just attacked, he killed his own father. Isn't it evil? No, it's not evil. If it was done by a mundane person, it is evil. But because it is done by Krishna, Narasimhadev, it is not evil. He's all good. Whatever Krishna does, whatever Narasimhadeva does, whatever the incarnation of Krishna does, is all good. Because the person, the so-called killing, is also deliverance. Krishna, whoever he kills, the demons, they all get liberated. In the battlefield of Kurukshetra, whoever died in the battlefield looking at Krishna, they all attained their Swarupa, went back to Godhead. Yam iha nirikshya hataha gataha swarupam, Srimad Bhagavatam says. So Krishna, either he kills or he benedicts. It is the same effect. In fact, Krishna purifies somebody by giving punishment. Instantly. Like, he cuts short their multiple births, suffering by just one punishment. Like it is said, this Indradyumna, King Indradyumna, He gets cursed to become an elephant, Gajendra, because he does not know how to respect a saintly person. So, because of that curse, he became an animal, all right, extreme punishment. But in the next birth, he was taken back to Godhead. So, Krishna's punishment actually is more purifying than Krishna's embrace. We all want to be dealt with very nicely, isn't it? Nobody wants to be dealt with in a ugly manner or disposable manner. But if we become subject to that, we become more purified. So Krishna is all good absolute. Therefore, because the devotee is simply concerned with Krishna, who is all good absolute, he is also not affected by good and evil. Such consciousness in Krishna situates one in a perfect transcendental position called technically samadhi. So 56 and 57 we covered. How does a devotee respond, a self-realized person respond to good and evil, to sukha and dukkha, like that? He remains fixed in Krishna consciousness. Now coming to the third question of Arjuna, which is, how does he sit? Kim asita? It also means, how is he situated? How does he situate his senses? How are his senses situated? Because our senses are fully agitated. They are not sitting, they are running around. Like Prabhupada also uses the analogy of snakes. Our senses are like venomous serpents, they act very loosely. But how does this person control his senses? Makes them situate, makes them sit without becoming loose. And that is answered in 58th and 59th verse. So the 58th verse, Krishna says, Yada samharate chayam kurmonganiva sarvashah indriyardebhyas tasya pragna pratishtita. What it means is, Yada samharate cha ayam. Samharate means winds up. Kurmonganiva sarvashah, just like a kurma, a tortoise. Angani iva sarvashah. His limbs, if you go see the tortoise, its limbs are withdrawn. You see only the shell from outside. And sometimes when it wants to achieve something, then it opens and starts to walk. So indriyani indriyardebhyaha. Indriya ardha means sense object. Our senses, indriyas, they have a purpose to act. Ardha means purpose. So what is the purpose for which our senses act? Indriya ardha, that is sense object. Our eyes want to look at some form. Our skin is looking at touch. Our nose are trying to smell something. Our tongue wants to taste something. Our ears want to hear something. These are all called sense objects. Hear, touch, form, smell, taste. But apart from the senses, the kurma, the tortoise, it uses the limbs only for a particular purpose. Otherwise, it withdraws its limbs. So, tasya pragna pratishtita. That's how our senses should be situated. Krishna answers that third question. Now, the second and third questions, see how does it flow? How does he respond to provoking situations? The second question. See, we discussed how the devotee remains fixed in Krishna consciousness. There was somebody told me this interesting story about this parrot. So once a man approached a parrot seller to buy a parrot. So this parrot seller said, I have this special parrot for you. So if you pull one of his legs, he chants the name of Krishna. And if you pull the other leg, he chants the name of Rama. And the person was thrilled to see such a saintly parrot. And he immediately purchased it. And whenever guests would visit his home, this man would proudly show his parrot to them and make them hear the divine names of Krishna and Rama. So one day he thought, if my parrot can chant the holy name upon pulling one of his legs, I'm sure if I pull both his legs, he will chant the entire Hare Krishna Mahamantra. So he approached the parrot and pulled both the legs. And to his shock, the parrot started to scream. You fool, don't you understand? If you pull both my legs, I will fall and break my head. And he started to scream like anything. And then this man was shocked. So this story is told to illustrate that we cannot maintain artificial gentleness for long. This world, everybody is taught to maintain some artificial gentleness, but in the heart they harbor something else. Even artificial gentleness also can be controlled only to some extent. Our responses, especially our speech, when there is a provoking situation, we immediately say something that we repent later. But Krishna advises in Bhagavad Gita, Anudvegakaram vakyam satyam priyahitam chayat swadhyaya bhyasanam chaiva manmayam tapa uchyate. While speaking, we have to restrain. We have to follow certain principles, even if there is provocation. Firstly, we should not provoke somebody with our speech by speaking some harsh words. Udvegakaram vakyam. So Krishna says, Anudvegakaram vakyam. You should speak pleasingly, not hurt others. And you should speak truth. It's not that you should flatter somebody by speaking false. You should speak truth. Priyahitam. And you should speak truth which is beneficial. Truth can be news in this world. Truth can be some mundane matter, but that is completely not beneficial. Speak the absolute truth, which is beneficial for the person. And in order to do all this, swadhyaya abhyasanam, one should always, swadhyaya means one should spend time in studying the scriptures, hearing from the scriptures. Take experience from learned authorities. When you see their behavior, how they responded in provoking situations, like Haridas Thakur, for example, several provoking situations. One time this prostitute came by the scheme of this zamindar to entangle him and get him caught. Haridas Thakur, he did not respond the way that she was expecting. In fact, he converted her to become a devotee by his chanting. Similarly, when the Muslim king, he ordered Haridas Thakur, hey, you are born into our religion, Muslim, but you are now taking to devotional service of Krishna, chanting Hare Krishna. You should stop doing that. Come back to our path. But Haridas Thakur, he jokingly said, my lord, what is there? Sometimes Some Hindus also become Muslims. It's what is there? One Muslim becomes a Hindu. So the Nawab becomes quite upset. And he said, no, you should immediately stop this chanting of this Hare Krishna mantra. But Haridas Thakur simply said, no, I will not be able to stop that, even if you cut me to pieces. And then he ordered Haridas Thakur to be beaten with a cane in 22 marketplaces. And people would become devastated. They would respond, they would try to scream for injustice, they would run away, or they would do all kinds of things to protect. But Haridas Thakur was completely protected by the Lord. He didn't get even agitated, and he bore all that difficulty. So, in the middle of provoking situation, if you maintain artificial restraint, that will only last for so long. But if you are fixed on Krishna, Haridas Thakur was not even feeling anything. He was not attracted by the prostitute. He was not even feeling the distress of getting beaten. Why? Because he was fixed on Krishna. He was tasting the chanting of the holy name of Krishna. So that is the reason the second and third questions are interrelated. The second question is, how does he remain unprovoked? How does he respond to provoking situations? The third question is, how is he situated? Because he is situated, his senses are all situated in Krishna, he does not respond in provoking situation the way a materialist responds. So that is how he is situated like a tortoise. His senses are restrained and he exhibits only when it is required, like a tortoise. Only when we require to achieve something, we should use our senses. Like Srila Prabhupada, you see, many times he is very grave. He is writing the books, waking up in the middle of the night. But when it is required, he would travel non-stop. He would talk to people. He would deal with karmis. He would deal with getting his devotees, disciples married. He would deal with business transactions. Everything he will do when it is required. But when it is not required, he will recluse himself, close his shell. So that is how we should be, like a tortoise. When it is required for Krishna, act actively, enthusiastically. But when it is not required, close your limbs, focus inside. So, the other interesting reason why the tortoise is given is that the way it makes steady progress, it may appear like very slow. Like we know that moral story, the hare and the tortoise, they put a race. Obviously, this hare can run very fast, and the tortoise is very slow. But the tortoise ends up winning the race because it does not rest. It keeps focusing on its path, its goal, and eventually makes the destination first. But the hare took it for granted. And he became egoistic and he started to take rest and sleep. And then when he woke up, the tortoise is already at the finishing lane. So even though we may think we are not progressing, we may be very slow like a tortoise. Actually, we are moving forward. But the important thing is, even though we may be slow, it's important to keep moving forward. Don't stop. Don't stop. Stopping means, like for example, we have taken vows in Krishna consciousness. It may be as simple as one vow, one round of chanting, or honoring only prasadam, or waking up at Mangalarti time, visiting the temple once in a week. Whatever it is, we should not stop. Even though it may be slow, But as long as we are moving, we are making progress. We should not stop, nor having once taken a vow of chanting, let's say 4 rounds, we should not go back 2 rounds, 1 round, or don't chant at all. So, whatever is our comfort level, we should take that and keep progressing. We will reach the finish lane, even though it may be a little delayed, just like a tortoise. Also, from the tortoise, we can find this wonderful example. Sometimes we think, I'm not making any impact. Even if you think no impact is made by you or by your spiritual practices you do, in effect, it does. Just like even if a tortoise crawls slowly, if you carefully see, even that will create a small trail behind it. It will create a small trail. So, you may not need to be noticed or make a big impact, but people, they're all watching you. Even when you are chanting nicely, even 1 round you are chanting, one simple service you are doing, if you are doing it nicely, you leave an impact. You leave a trail for people to observe. Krishna is observing you. People are observing. Oh, such a nice service. Somebody has done this service. Oh, such how nicely they are chanting. They are hearing. They are practicing. Somebody will notice. If nobody notices, Krishna knows. And obviously, as I said, the tortoise pulls all its limbs inwards when the danger is near. Similarly, a spiritual aspirant should pull his senses inwards when there is Maya. We should be careful of this material world's contamination. When there is a lot of Maya going on, which is detrimental for our spiritual progress, we should pull our limbs inwards, just like a tortoise. The other wonderful thing we can learn from the tortoise is how it uses its laziness. We should use our laziness for spiritual progress. Like, for example, you are abstaining from eating rich food, you're on a diet, but you go past a restaurant, your favorite restaurant, favorite food is there, and you become little tempted to go there and eat. But if the restaurant is overcrowded, people are standing in the line, you said, okay, forget it. I don't want to stand in the line in the sun. And then you go away, isn't it? But that is forced by the line, the people in the queue. So similarly, you should think like that. It's so much of the tortoise thinks like that. It's lazy to do even small things. Better I take rest. So like that, in material aspects where it is involved, a lot of passion is involved for no good, you should use the tortoise example. Draw your limbs inside. Become lazy. Focus on your spiritual aspect. So these are all wonderful ways we can follow from the tortoise to progress in Krishna consciousness. I'll stop here. Anyone has any questions or comments, feel free to unmute yourself. Bhagavad Gita as it is ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Nitai Gaur Premanande, Hari Hari Bol, Hare Krishna.